Hi, everyone. Just give it a couple of minutes for people to join us. We're very excited to be offering this talk today about the Alpha-Stim. So big warm welcome to Steve. He's been working with us collaboratively with the Alpha-Stim for around about, I think we worked out 9 years now, actually, that we've been using the Alpha-Stim in total at Starjumpz. So yeah, that's very exciting. I couldn't quite believe it was that long.
No, that is a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also got Josh here with us today as well. So Steve's the managing director of the UK distribution for Alpha-Stim, and then Josh is a clinical psychologist who's also been working with the Alpha-Stim for quite a lot of time, I understand. So we're going to be streaming across platforms today, and at the end there'll be some time for questions as well. All right, Josh, I don't know if you want to say anything more about your kind of background or history with Alpha-Stim.
Yes, I would be happy to. I started using the Alpha-Stim in about 2018 when I worked for the Veterans Health Administration in Texas. Used it with my veterans, had great success with it. Went from the VA to actually working for EPI as their clinical education director for about a little over 4 years, which is where I met Steve and Becky. Just helping people understand how the device works, what it does, working with the regulatory agencies around the world for the device. And now I've recently separated from EPI and am back in clinical work as a clinical psychologist. So.
Fantastic. All right. So just a little bit about Starjumpz before we start, just in case there is anyone joining us who's not familiar with us. So we are a Starjumpz Children's Centre based in Crowborough, East Sussex. So we offer a lot of different services here, including diagnostic assessment for things like autism and ADHD, dyspraxia, but we also have a whole range of occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, a range of psychological services as well, including play therapy, psychotherapy, and we also have nutrition and functional medicine services as well. Fabulous. So Steve, if it's okay, I'll hand over to you just to give us a little bit more background on kind of the Alpha-Stim and the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Becky. Yeah, I've been involved with the device for more years than I can care to remember. I think I was first introduced to it at a conference in Germany, 2010, for my own personal use. Actually, I was struggling with insomnia at the time. My wife had postnatal depression. We were looking for some sort of solution to try and help alleviate both those symptoms. And yeah, I was introduced to the device, bought a couple from the US, really liked what it was doing for me. Obviously did my research first. And that's where the idea of me making this product more available to the rest of the country sort of formulated, really. It was just a case of understanding that there are other options out there that aren't necessarily the traditional ones that we're used to using. But yeah, my journey started in 2010, and my mission then and remains today is to make this device available as widely as possible to everybody, not just those that can afford it and can access it through their own means. It's such an amazing product that I fell in love with it very, very quickly, and it's the passion for the device that's got me to this point. I've got 4 children of my own. All of them used it at various parts of their life. So yeah, it's been a long journey. But as I say, it's the unwavering belief in the product and passion for the product that's kept me going. We've made some significant progress in the last few years with the NHS. The NHS is now using it as part of their primary care anxiety treatment in Northamptonshire. We've also started working recently with Northamptonshire Mind, who've done a pilot staff with amazing outcomes, and they've started to offer it to their service users. So the word is spreading slowly but surely. I think what I love about it is the fact that, the worst case scenario is nothing going to happen, right? Doesn't work for everybody. We know that. We don't suggest otherwise, but it's completely safe. There's no, lasting side effects. And as I say, the worst case scenario is you don't see a discernible improvement, but, in the vast majority of cases, you will. So, it's, I say, we're very excited to work with you guys. Didn't realize it had been 9 years, I've got to admit.
Yeah, I know.
Crikey. But no, it's always been a pleasure to work with you guys, and I know it's fantastic work that you do. We understand the issue with CAMS and the NHS is under an enormous pressure. So it's nice to be able to offer assistance to people outside of that, and you guys continue to do a fantastic job. So I don't want to take up too much more time here, other than to say, really grateful that Josh has joined us. He's far more educated on the clinical side of things. So I'll answer any questions if there are any, but probably prefer to hand over to Josh at this point to allow him to talk about his expertise clinically.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. That's great. So I'll hand over to Josh. Thank you for joining us today, Josh. Let me just grab our slides. Here we go.
All right. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And I always love Steve's intro and hearing how people are introduced to Alpha-Stim and their experiences with it. I concur with him. It's an amazing device. My wife actually used it just a couple of hours ago. She called me. She was like, she was feeling like really anxious and keyed up, and it calmed her down pretty quickly. So as the joke goes, not only do I help her present the device, I'm also a customer use it. So
absolutely, yeah. You've got to be, right? Makes absolute sense.
All right. So I just want to talk briefly about what Alpha-Stim is, because it is unfortunately still a relatively unknown technology, even though it has been around for several decades. But Electromedical Products International is a small company that's growing slowly over the years. So, as Steve said, the word is slowly getting out. But Alpha-Stim uses a technology known as cranial electrotherapy stimulation, which is a non-invasive brain stimulation that applies low amplitude of current across the head. Now, there are other CES devices on the market, but Alpha-Stim is the global leader in terms of safety, research, and sales. In the US, CES is cleared by the FDA to treat anxiety and insomnia. It has other clearances in other countries around the world. So, for example, in the UK, it's also used for depression. And in some parts of Europe, it can also be used for centrally mediated pain syndromes. As Steve mentioned, it is safe. There's no lasting side effects. There's no risk of addiction like you would find with other medications. And also no risk of accommodation like you get with other medical devices. Your body doesn't get used to this. In fact, just the opposite. The effects are cumulative. So the more you use it, the better the results become and the longer they last. With anxiety, you usually see results in the first treatment. As I mentioned, my wife put it on and her anxiety went down while she was using it. And then the benefits will last for the first session. My average using it clinically is about 4 to 8 hours before the anxiety comes back. But as you use it more and more, eventually it gets to where it's lasting longer than 24 hours. So it is just an amazingly effective device. Go ahead, next slide.
Yep.
So how it works, we like to say that Alpha-Stim speaks the language of the brain. And what it's doing is normalizing the activity in the central and peripheral nervous systems. So, when we think stimulation, we think, oh, it's stimulating, it's activating different parts of the brain. But it's really more of a modulator than a stimulator. It's just normalizing electrical activities. So next slide. And it is normalizing this activity in 2 synergistic ways. So you use an Alpha-Stim by clipping the ear clip electrodes onto your earlobes on each side. And because of where the ear clips are placed, then it's stimulating all of the cranial nerves that terminate in or around the earlobes, and that includes the vagus nerve. So you get all the benefits of a vagus nerve stimulator, plus a bunch of other benefits as well. So you're modulating the cranial nerves, but then you're also directly modulating the cortical oscillations in the temporal lobe, which makes sense because temporal lobes are right here behind the ears. And this two ways of affecting the electrical activity in the nervous system helps to normalize the pathological signaling that you find in a bunch of the brain networks that are associated with like anxiety, insomnia, and a bunch of other conditions. It works very quickly. It's very effective and safe. And then, as I mentioned, the symptom relief lasts more and more the longer you use it. Next slide. I believe Steve mentioned that it's a patented technology. This is the patented waveform. That's kind of the secret behind how Alpha-Stim works. As you can see, it's a bipolar square wave. The square waves are made up of sine waves of various widths and heights. And those sine waves are what help normalize the electrical activity in the brain. So it does work in a microcurrent range at 0.5 hertz. And then the current is anywhere from 100 to 500 microamps. So it really is a micro amount of current. It matches the electrical activity already coursing through the nerves. And then the frequencies just help to normalize the electrical activity and the signaling within the brain. It moves very slowly. As you can see, it takes 10 seconds for the waveform to completely enter the nervous system. And that doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're talking about electricity, 10 seconds is an eternity. So go ahead, next slide. And then with the Alpha-Stim aid, there's two models. With the aid, the 0.5 hertz waveform is the only option you have. With the M, which has a few more features, you can change the frequency, but more is not better. So as you can see, the faster the waveform is, the more compressed, or the faster the frequency is, the more compressed the waveform becomes. And so you're not getting the time for all the harmonics that are generated by the waveform to work. So 0.5 hertz has been shown to be the most effective frequency, both in research and in clinical experience. Next slide. And then, as was indicated on a slide, there are well over 100, I think they're closing in on 150 or more studies on the Alpha-Stim with a variety of patients and indications. They've also got quite a few mechanistic studies to see how the device actually works. In this study that looked at fMRI activity at different frequencies, so it looked at 0.5 hertz and 100 hertz. And across the top there, you see the blue areas is where 0.5 hertz helps to deactivate hyperactive areas of the brain. And as you can see, that's, it had quite a global effect on different areas of the brain, whereas the 100 hertz only deactivated very specific areas of the brain, and the deactivation really didn't last much longer after the treatment ended. And then but like I mentioned, we're normalizing the activity. So we're not only calming down overactive areas of the brain, we're stimulating underactive areas, and you only see that stimulation with 0.5 hertz. And that's what you see on the bottom half of this slide. So it really is just kind of bringing everything back into normal and helping the nervous system work optimally the way it's designed to. Next slide. And then we have other studies that also show this normalization in the brain of patients with anxiety, patients with chronic pain. And then this Chow study down at the bottom showed this normalization of electrical activity in the brain, and then also showed that with a series of treatments, subjects exhibited evidence of neuroplasticity. So it does help with long-lasting effects, helps stimulate neuroplasticity, and helps the brain kind of rewire new pathways so that you're not as anxious and you're sleeping better. Next slide. This is just to show, again, that there's a bunch of, well over 100 studies on anxiety, depression, insomnia, and pain. And you can see all that at alphastim.com on their website. So unlike other companies where if you go look for their research, you can't really find it, Alpha-Stim all of the research is front and center. You can find it very easily. Click on the links, read synopsis, whatever you want to do. So next slide. So this is one of the pivotal studies. It looked at patients with anxiety and compared to a sham device, which did not emit any current, and found that the active group over a period of 5 weeks had at least 3 times the improvement of the sham group in their anxiety symptoms as reported on the Hamilton Anxiety Scale. But also found that almost 84% of the active group reported at least a 50% improvement in their symptoms in just over 5 weeks. And so that's pretty incredible. And also, if you go looking in this article for side effects, there's exactly one sentence, and it says something like absolutely no participants reported side effects. So again, very effective, very safe. Next slide. Over a 24-week period, Dr. Morris and his team took people that were on the waiting list for CBT that had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and offered them 12 weeks of Alpha-Stim treatment. As you can see, from baseline to 4 weeks, they had, pretty severe improvement in their symptoms. And then they steadily got better over that 12-week period of time. One of my favorite things about this study is that after they took the devices back, they did a follow-up 12 weeks later and found that, while at 12 weeks, about 45% of their sample had achieved remission on the GAD-7. When they went back 12 weeks later, the percentage that had achieved remission had gone up to almost 48%. So it does keep working even after you stop using it once you hit that cumulative period. So, all right, go ahead. When we're talking about insomnia, Alpha-Stim works pretty quickly with insomnia. Most people start sleeping much better from the first night. Some people may take 3 to 6 weeks, especially if there's comorbid depression. But this study just shows, significant improvements in sleep quality within just a 3-week period of time when compared to a control group. So
yeah, that's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so, all right. And then again, in the UK, you can use the Alpha-Stim for depression. And so the study the first study that we looked at that was looking at anxiety, they were also looking at depression. They had that as a secondary variable and found very similar results with depression in the same period of time, which, if you are a provider who treats depression, then this is a much faster response than you get with therapy or with medications. And again, much safer. So, all right, next slide. All right, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over not just how it works, but also some of the research evidence to show you that it is an evidence-based treatment. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Becky.
Thanks, Josh. I think it's really helpful to have that information as well, because you come across so many different kind of devices and new fads on the internet. So knowing there's actually, a good evidence base behind it is really important. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I'm going to attempt to play. I'm going to see if it works. But we've got one of our lovely Starjumpz children showing us the device and talking a little bit about it. So I'm going to see if we can get it to work.
Helps with stress and stuff.
So Sammy's going to show us how he uses the Alpha-Stim. So Sammy, how do you use it?
You put it, so you would obviously, you put the stuff that there's a fit special liquid. You need to put it on these bits there, and then once you've done that, you simply clip them onto your ears. On the earlobes. And
how long do you put it on for?
20 to 40 minutes. 40 is better for a longer time. A longer the time, so it can go up quite high.
But you keep it on level 2, really, don't you? For
Yeah.
40 minutes. And how does that help you, Sammy?
Helps you sleep. You can go to sleep easier. helps with stress and stuff.
So thank you to Sammy for his wonderful demonstration. So as he shows, it's so easy to use. It looks like a little iPad almost, or iPod, and it's just a simple on button. And then you've got an option for how long. So you can do a 20-minute treatment, a 40-minute, or a 60-minute. And you can pick the frequency that you work on as well. So a place that feels comfortable for you. So if you're working on a lower frequency, they recommend that you use it for a longer period of time. But if you're doing a higher frequency, if that's a frequency that feels comfortable for you, then you can do it for a shorter period of time, about 20 minutes. And the really good thing about the device as well is that it's super portable, so you can use it from home. You can have it clipped on your ears while you're watching TV, while you're engaging in a favorite activity, doing a jigsaw puzzle, something like that. And I think that's one of the reasons for us at Starjumpz that it is such a helpful device, because a lot of the children that we see, their anxiety can be so high that actually even coming into the centre is a really big ask for them, and it's something that's really tricky. So to be able to have something that's a support that they can access from home is hugely kind of beneficial. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that at all about the use of the device.
Josh, do you have?
No, the important thing is, you mentioned finding a current that is comfortable for you. The way you do that is, and you do this every time, because the current that you need, that your nervous system needs, may change from one treatment to the next. But you just turn the current up until you feel a little bit like dizzy, lightheaded, any kind of discomfort, and then turn it down. That will go away pretty quickly, and then that's the level that you treat at. So it's pretty easy to find. This isn't like a guessing game where you've got to like turn it up slowly, like with every treatment, to see what you can tolerate. It'll tell you pretty quickly when you've gone too high, and then so you just turn it down from that. So it really is an easy to use device.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of us here at Starjumpz have used it as well, and we find that it's so interesting because the frequencies that we all use are so different. So some of us will have it really high and not kind of feel too much at all, whereas for me, I can have it very low and I sense straight away almost a slight vertigo feeling. So that's when I know that I need to turn it down. So it's just finding kind of the current that feels comfortable and right for you, really.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience. Even after all these years using it, is still sometimes I tolerate it slightly higher, and then probably if I'm using it at night, I'll have it on low, and that's just a personal choice. I know that ultimately it's the same outcome. So there's really no right or wrong. It's whatever works for the individual. But I think some people get a little bit not concerned about when you feel the sense of nausea and disorientation. For the first time, that can be quite off-putting. So I think what Josh has explained there about how it's stimulating the cranial nerves, it's a natural process. It's not in any way harmful, but it's just uncomfortable. And if you don't need to feel that to get a result. So that's what I always tell people: just find a level that you're comfortable at. That's the most important thing.
Okay. And then also, Becky and Steve, I'm seeing some questions coming in on the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Joe had asked me to kind of address them. So Lauren is asking, how many times a day can you use the Alpha-Stim? There's really no limit to it. Once or twice a day is usually all that people need initially. I have talked to people who've used it more often. I know when people are having like really acute high anxiety, then they may use it more often. Basically, just as soon as you feel the symptoms starting to come back, you can put it back on. This isn't something. The one time I've heard anything that I would consider overuse, I had a veteran who called me. He'd used it Saturday, called me Monday morning and said that Sunday he just didn't quite feel right. Like he didn't feel bad, just didn't quite feel right was the only way he could describe it. But he had used his Alpha-Stim at the full current level for an hour each 9 times on Saturday. And I'm like, okay, maybe 3 times a day is good. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's literally, you got to get to like that kind of extreme before you even feel a little weird.
Yeah,
So,
like a balanced diet. So yeah, you need your meat, you need vegetables, you need a bit of everything, and not
yes,
too much of one thing.
exactly. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think most of the children that we work with, they tend to mainly use it a few hours before sleep to help with sleep onset. But also I know that some of our children have used it, and it's quite helpful for them first thing in the morning if they're very anxious about going into school and the whole demand of getting ready to go in. They quite often can find it helpful in the morning.
Yeah. Someone's also asking about contraindications. Really the only contraindication, and this is more of a regulatory requirement than any danger medically, is the presence of an implanted electrical device that can't be turned off, like a pacemaker, defibrillator, or something like that. Pregnancy is considered a warning. There's never been any indication of any kind of complications during or with pregnancy or with birth or with the children. But as with any other treatment you're going to do, if you're pregnant or may become pregnant, talk with your doctor, go over the risks and benefits involved. And just in an abundance of precaution, I would recommend if you want to use it and you're pregnant, wait till the 2nd trimester and start it. Again, no indication that there's a danger, but there's just so much happening in the 1st trimester that, give your body and the fetus time. Someone's asking if it can be used in the car. We don't recommend it being used in the car. Of course, every physician that I've ever talked to that uses it, that's exactly when they use it, is either going to their clinic or driving home so that they're relaxed when they get home. But really, it's safe to use in the car, but we recommend not doing it because every now and then, not very often, but every now and then you may feel a little bit of dizziness about halfway through the treatment. You just need to turn the current down. I don't want either of those happening while you're behind the wheel of a car. So we do ask you not to drive, but pretty much anything else. Like I've talked to people who use it while they go for a jog or do yoga or strength train. You can sit and watch TV. They're every single day at EPI. People have it on while they're in meetings and working at their desk and on the phone. So it is easy to use.
Of course, if you're in the car and you're a passenger, then that would be.
Oh yeah, if you're a passenger, absolutely.
It's just if you're actually driving.
I just want you to physically be driving with the ear clips.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in case. Yeah. Fantastic.
So, and let's see. The only other question I see that I don't think we addressed is about age limits. And really, what I tell people is breathing. We had a rep in the US that when I met him, he told me that he would put it on infants to demonstrate safety to their parents. How he talked them into doing that, I don't know. He was an incredible salesman, I guess. But when I worked for EPI and I would do the regulatory reports every couple of years, I would pull the patient list for the last 2 years, and we routinely had patients as young as 18 months to 3 years old, up to late 90s. So, but
and someone's just asked as well. So, if you were in the car, could it help with travel sickness?
For some people, it could if you were the passenger. I've not tried it that way. I do know some people with vertigo are able to use it at like 100 microamps, and it helps with their vertigo. So I would think it would help with that travel sickness.
I think a lot of the time as well with travel sickness, a lot of that as well can be exacerbated by worry and anxiety sometimes as well of a long journey as well. So if it was more of that side of things, maybe using it just before you go might be something that would help with that build up potentially of travel sickness, I would think. So, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
All
Fantastic.
right. These questions were excellent. Thank you all very much.
So I thought it would be nice just to do a quick highlight on the lovely Callum, who comes to Starjumpz here for occupational therapy, who had a fantastic experience with using the device regularly. So Callum has diagnosis of ADHD, autism, sensory processing difficulties, and has difficulty with tourettes as well. So he started using the device regularly around about the time that there was the ADHD medication shortage. So a lot of families were really struggling at that point to access their medications that were making their daily life easier. So Callum heard through his occupational therapist about the use of the Alpha-Stim, and they decided to try it. And they found that there were, fantastic differences. So he was able to learn better and focus better in class. It really helped with his sleeping difficulties. So he was able to be asleep by 10 p.m. when previously that was something that he really struggled with. And his mum described him as very much having always a glass half full, ready to almost sort of tip over. And it just really helped with calming his whole nervous system down during the day. And one of the biggest impacts was actually that it really helped reduce the number of tics that he was experiencing. Because of course, when you have tics, you become very anxious about them and how they're going to look to others. And so you try harder and harder to kind of hold that in. But by actually relaxing the anxiety, it was almost a secondary effect that it really very much helped with his tics as well. So again, I've got another quick video. I'm just going to see if I can get it to work, of another lovely child called Poppy and her experience of using the Alpha-Stim.
In the morning, I like to have it on for 20 minutes.
And how do you find it helps you?
It gives me like longer and deeper sleep, and I don't have I don't wake up in the night.
Okay. Do you find it helps with any anxiety or anything like that?
Yeah, it makes me a lot more calm in the morning, and I don't have as much stress.
Guys, that was just a little story from Poppy there as well. I mean, certainly I find in my practice, I use the Alpha-Stim alongside neurofeedback, which I find really helpful because it very much complements, because neurofeedback's all about training the brain to naturally feel more regulated and regulating the nervous system and calming everything down. So it's very good for children with anxiety, executive functioning difficulties like attention, impulsivity. And I've certainly found with my clients that it can really help support with sleep onset. It just helps them get back into a routine. So I've had children who are only getting sort of a couple of hours sleep a night. And then by regularly using the Alpha-Stim each day, I've had some clients certainly describe their child's first full night's sleep in a very long time. And for some clients, even up to sort of sleeping through the night 5 hours, 7 days a week, which was sort of almost mind-blowing to me, that it could have that much of an effect. It was absolutely fantastic. And I also really find that it helps very much in between neurofeedback, again, of just giving that brain more encouragement to be in a more regulated state in between sessions as well. I don't know if you guys have got any sort of quick case studies or personal experiences using the device that you might like to share that would be helpful.
Is that directed at us?
Yeah, for you guys, if you've got any sort of relevant sort of thoughts, even if it's your personal experience of how you've used it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share mine, and it goes across my whole family. As I said before, I've got 4 kids. One of my eldest son, who's almost 12, he's had a really difficult start to life. Bless him. He had major surgery when he was 18 months, and he had a lot of trauma. And interestingly, we went and had some neurofeedback, and he used the Alpha-Stim every night for about a year, actually. Initially, he was quite resistant to it, so I had to put it on when he was asleep. But at the end, he was actually asking for it and asking to use it because he knew that it was calming him down and having a really positive effect. So it's been life changing. You would not recognise him now to the boy he was when he started on this journey. So, and I've got 2 older girls. They've both been through exams recently. My own personal experience. I would not be without this device. This is absolutely my must-have wherever I go in the world. I take my Alphastim with me. I genuinely absolutely love it. It's been life changing for me and my family. So, I genuinely mean that. It's just an amazing piece of kit. But my son's experience particularly, it's been amazing. So that's just a little anecdote from me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we've at Starjumpz, we've certainly had a couple of children that have a lot of school-based anxiety or exam-based anxiety, and they find that's very helpful for them to use the Alpha-Stim, before exams or before they go in. So that's a really fantastic use of it. And yeah, we've also had a couple of clients as well where we get them to put the device on when they're already asleep as well, which is something to consider for a lot of our children if they do have sort of sensory sensitivities or are especially hyperactive and they might struggle to sort of keep it on. It's fantastic that that's another option and another way to use it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've treated thousands of people over the years and have seen amazing results. My favorite has always been when I was with the Veterans Health Administration. I worked in a small outpatient clinic, kind of very rural. And before I got my hands on an Alpha-Stim, if a veteran came in a panic attack, really the only thing we could do is send them to the emergency department at the local hospital, where they would get, IV sedative and, basically knocked out. And then when they woke up, they were sent home. Very time consuming, very inconvenient, obviously. And then all the side effects of the sedatives and the anxiolytics. But once I got it, the first time we had a veteran come in, family member brought them in, full-blown panic attack, hyperventilating, sweats, the whole, classic panic attack symptoms. And while medical was running around trying to get their paperwork and, try to get their blood pressure and all that, I just walked out, brought them in my office, put the ear clips on them. And within 5 minutes, the panic attack was completely gone. And then we did the rest of the 20-minute treatment session, just processing what happened, like what triggered the panic attack, what tends to trigger them. They were much more engaged because this worked faster than anything they'd ever seen. And then there were no side effects. So it, really is. I've got tons and tons and tons of stories that are just almost instantaneous or almost miraculous.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. 5 minutes, because it can take so long for someone to come down from a panic attack.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful. All right. I think we're pretty much there in case we've got any other questions. So obviously we're working alongside Microcurrent at the moment, so we're able to offer to hire the Alpha-Stim device in terms of weekly rental, or it is a device that you can purchase as well. And it's very complementary alongside other therapies and things like that in terms of what Josh was saying about contraindications. So yeah, I think that's been really, really helpful and informative, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just wait a couple of seconds just in case there's any questions that suddenly pop up. But
no, thank you very much for the opportunity. I enjoyed speaking with everybody. So.
Thanks, John. It's always a pleasure.
I think it's those personal stories that really help as well to understand how much of a sort of a difference in support that the Alpha-Stim can be as well. So that brings a lot.
It does. And honestly, Becky, it's a consistent theme every day. You get somebody, calling up saying how life-changing it's been, and it is very rewarding. And it's, we're just grateful for the opportunity to talk to other people about it. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. So if anyone does have any questions or queries or wants to know more about the Alpha-Stim, you can contact us at info@starjumpz.com for more information, or you can give us a call as well. We're happy to answer kind of any questions that pop up. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks,
Have a good evening.